The sun rose slowly over the vast golden savanna of South Africa, its rays spilling like liquid fire across the sea of tall, yellow grass. The land breathed in silence, save for the soft rustle of leaves and the distant calls of waking birds. Time seemed to pause here, between the shadows of yesterday and the promises of today. Beneath the shade of a low acacia, a lion lay still. He was large, his mane streaked with dust and age, his ribs faintly visible beneath his golden coat. His eyes did not close. They watched, always. A few steps ahead, a tiny lion cub batted playfully at his father's tail, tumbling over clumps of dry grass, unaware of the dangers that ruled the wild. The father lion did not play. He did not purr. But his presence was an anchor, a silent wall between the cub and everything else. In his every breath lived the scars of past battles, the ache of hunger, the burden of solitude. And though the morning seemed peaceful, there was a tension in the air, as if something unseen had begun to stir. If stories like this move you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful wildlife tales that touch the soul. The cub had barely begun to understand the wild. Every fluttering insect, every twitching shadow was a new adventure waiting to be discovered. That morning, it had found fascination in a single yellow grasshopper leaping among the brittle stalks. It pounced, missed, giggled in its own way, and pounced again, this time chasing the flicker deeper into the sunlit field. The father lion remained where he was, his massive head resting on his paws, amber eyes half-lidded yet watchful. He had long since learned not to move unless necessary. The world he knew did not offer second chances, but he let the cub wander, just a little, just enough to feel free. Then it happened. The cub's paw caught beneath a hidden stone. Its hind leg twisted as it stumbled mid-stride. A startled yelp echoed, sharp and brief, followed by a sickening thud as its small body hit the dry earth. Dust rose in a soft puff. Then nothing. For a heartbeat, the savanna stood still. The birds stopped chirping. The wind seemed to pause. Even the grass, once dancing to the rhythm of morning, now stood frozen. Like it, too, understood something had gone terribly wrong. The father lion sprang up, his muscles tensing, ears pinned back. His eyes searched and locked onto the still shape, partially hidden among the golden blades. He rushed forward, faster than he had moved in days, his breath short and heavy with fear. Reaching the cub, he circled once, then lowered his head. He nudged the cub's side. No response. Again he nudged, more firmly this time. The cub let out a faint, broken whimper, its eyes half open, unfocused. Blood stained one of its paws. Its body trembled in short, shallow gasps. The father let out a low, guttural sound. Not a roar, but something older, something primal. A call born not of dominance, but of despair. He began to lick the cub's leg, instinctively tending to the wound as he had seen lionesses do. But the tremble in his tongue betrayed him. The cub wasn't getting better. It was then that he lifted his gaze, past the rocks, past the sun, toward the distant hills where he knew the rumble of machines lived. He hesitated. He hated that direction, but his cub was dying, and hate no longer mattered. The father lion stood over his cub, casting a long shadow in the golden light. The once proud guardian of the plains now appeared almost fragile, his power reduced to panic, his roar softened to a pleading growl. He lowered his head and began to nuzzle the cub, his nose brushing the dust from its fur, willing it to move, to fight back. But the cub didn't stir. He licked the wound again and again, as if his tongue could turn back time, as if love alone could seal a gash or reset a twisted limb. The smell of blood mixed with the dry scent of grass, staining the morning with dread. The cub whimpered faintly, a sound so small it broke the father's composure completely. His breath turned uneven, catching in his throat like a sob. His shoulders rose and fell with a tremble no predator should ever show. These were the plains he had ruled, the winds that once carried his roar across the valley. And now they bore witness to a truth he had never wanted to face. He was powerless. His amber eyes, once fierce enough to freeze antelope in their tracks, now brimmed with something far older than strength. Grief. He stood still for a moment, letting the pain wash over him. He had survived droughts, battles, exile. He had clawed through nights of fire and thunder, but none of it had prepared him for the slow unraveling of the tiny life beneath his paws. A soft breeze pushed through the savanna, brushing against his mane like a whisper. The birds had begun to sing again, unaware or perhaps unbothered by the grief unfolding below. The lion's ears twitched, far in the distance, too far for the cub to see, but close enough for a father to remember. A low mechanical hum rolled across the land. Vehicles. He froze. His body instinctively stiffened, memories flashing through his mind. The pain of metal biting flesh, the thunder of tires on dirt, the sting of betrayal by something upright and cold-eyed. He had sworn never to go near them again. But today he didn't care about pain, or memory, or pride. He cared about a small heartbeat, fading fast against his chest. And so, with a deep, broken breath, the father lion prepared to do the unthinkable. Walk toward the ones he once feared, with nothing but hope in his eyes and his dying cub in his jaws. The lion turned his head eastward, his eyes narrowing toward the hazy shimmer of the horizon. Beyond the hills, where the sun painted the earth with harsh light, lay a path he had long vowed never to tread again. That direction smelled of metal, oil, and fear. It was where the land stopped whispering in the language of wind and began screaming in the language of machines. He remembered it well, too well. The roar of an engine closing in, the sharp whistle of something unnatural cutting the air, the sting, hot and instant, of a bullet tearing into his flank, the panic, the chase, the smoke, the memory of dragging himself through thorn and blood while men in boots laughed and pointed. Since that day, he had learned to live with a limp in his back leg and hatred in his chest. He had learned that man was no different from the drought, unforgiving, unnatural, and always coming back. But now his leg did not ache. His hatred did not burn. His instincts did not scream, because none of it mattered, not now. The only sound that remained in his world was the faint, shallow breathing of the cub nestled against his side, and the memory of its bright eyes now dimmed with pain. The lion closed his own eyes briefly, as if bracing for a second wound, this time not from metal, but from surrender. He stepped forward, not with power, not with rage, but with a heavy grace. He reached down, took the cub's neck gently in his jaws, and lifted it as carefully as if it were made of leaves. Its body hung limp, but its pulse still fluttered, barely. Each step toward the unknown pulled against everything he had ever learned about survival. But fatherhood, real fatherhood, is not about dominance or territory. It is about sacrifice. And so he walked, through the wind, through the dust, toward the line he swore never to cross again. Not as a king, not as a hunter, but as a father, carrying all that he loved, risking everything he feared, for one final chance at life. The lion's pace slowed as he reached the edge of a clearing where the golden grass grew shorter and the scent of man began to linger. The air was different here, less wild, more weighted with things he couldn't name but could never forget. Still, he did not turn back. With a groan that seemed to come not from his throat, but from somewhere deep within his bones, he lowered himself to the earth. Dust rose and settled gently over his mane as he knelt beside his child, placing the cub softly onto the warm soil. The cub let out a faint wheezing sound, barely a breath. The father pressed his forehead gently against its side, his eyes closed, not from fear, not from pain, but from something more difficult to bear, the willingness to let go. He stayed like that for a long moment, unmoving, as if willing his strength into the cub's fragile frame. Then with a deep inhale, he shifted his weight, and with one trembling push of his nose, he nudged the cub forward toward the unknown. There was no growl, no roar, no dominance, no pride, only silence. It was not the silence of weakness, but the kind that comes before a storm of transformation. The silence of surrender, of sacrifice, of a father offering up what he cannot save alone. He looked toward the east again, toward the trails where the rumble of patrol vehicles sometimes passed. He could not see them, not yet, but he knew they came. He had seen them too many times from a distance, always avoiding their scent, always fading into the brush. Now he hoped they would come. He hoped they would not turn away. If they are cruel, he might have said, if lions had words, then let them take me. But if they carry mercy in their hands today, then let that mercy fall on him. The wind swept across the field, tugging at his mane like a farewell from the earth itself. And in that stillness, beneath the boundless sky of South Africa, among the golden grass he once ruled, the father lion waited. He did not know if they would come. He only knew he would not run this time. The rumble of tires cracked the silence, growing louder until a green patrol truck crested the hill. Inside, the ranger froze. Ahead of him, standing motionless in the open, was a fully grown male lion, a breath caught in his throat until he saw the smaller figure lying in the grass. A cub. The man stepped out cautiously, hands raised, boots crunching softly against the brittle earth. The lion did not move. He did not bare his teeth. He stood like a statue carved from dust and dusk, his golden mane catching the breeze. The ranger approached the cub, knelt, and opened his medical pack with slow, reverent hands. As he cleaned the wound and prepared the injection, the lion took a single step forward, then another. No threat, no sound, just presence. When the ranger looked up, their eyes met. No war, no fear, only a quiet understanding. The lion bent his great head, resting it gently against the cub's side, a farewell no roar could ever hold. Then without a sound he turned, and as the wind swept across the savanna and the sky melted into gold, the father lion walked alone into the light, never looking back, and yet remembered forever.